excused from the courtroom. Or if he's going to be a witness, then he needs to leave the court.
The rule against the rule of sequestration needs to be followed.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so is he going to be a witness?
We don't intend to call him as a witness.
Okay,
There we are.
that's fine. Thank you.
Now, I believe that's all you have?
That's all I had, Judge.
Now, you can go.
Thank you. Just very briefly, Judge, during the direct examination of Ms. Taylor, I attempted to elicit some testimony regarding her observation of Ross Harris's emotions and demeanor at the funeral. The question that I asked was, did you have an opportunity to, and I think that's about where the objection came in. I wasn't going to ask if Ross had an opportunity to be at the funeral, but what I was going to ask was whether or not she was able to overhear Ross address the individuals there in presence at the funeral. I was expecting to elicit from her that while the funeral was going on, that Ross was able to listen in by way of cell phone, and something that was not planned in any way. Someone there asked if Ross wanted to say a few words. What I intended to elicit from her was simply that he was crying, very upset, very emotional, over the cell phone in a very public setting during the funeral. The objection was that it was hearsay, and our position is under 24-8-801. We weren't offering, our intent wasn't to offer any statements for the truth. We wanted to offer her observation of his, basically his crying and emotional response. So I don't think it's hearsay at all under 24-801, at least what it is we attempted to elicit. And to the extent that the court were to make such a finding that it were hearsay, it would be an exception under 24-8-803, number 3. This code section deals with exceptions to the hearsay rule. And Part 3 deals with then existing mental, emotional, and physical condition. A statement of the declarant's then existing state of mind, emotion, sensation, or physical condition, such as intent, plan, motive, design, mental feeling, pain, and bodily health, but not including a statement of memory or belief to prove a fact. Remember, to believe unless such statements relate to the execution, revocation, identification, or terms of the declarant's will, and not including a statement of belief as to the intent of another person. So essentially, his emotional state, his emotional state of mind, that would obviously fall under that exception. And the reason why I wanted to elicit this particular testimony is because the state has made no secret during the course of this trial that their position is that Ross was unemotional, and that any emotion that was displayed was false or fake or somehow not real. I believe that the wife of Mr. Harris probably is in a much better position to sort of make that call as to whether or not his pain and emotion that came through on the phone during the funeral was genuine. And so that is my proffer as to the sustained objection.
We'll stay with our argument before Judge as well as relevancy. There is no relevance of the defendant's reactions over a week after the child's death. He had every motive in a public setting to act emotional and things like that. So I believe it is completely excludable, self-serving as well. He is not a party opponent. This is defense trying to get in statements and behaviors of the defendant weeks after the defendant's after the death of the child. If the law allowed this would open the door for basically every day of every action of how the defendant reacted to other people outside of what we're here relevant for. The state of mind of him a week and a half later, under these circumstances is not relevant. There's the probative value is greatly outweighed by any prejudicial value from this, attempting to put this in front of the jury in this manner. Also, as far as the wife being able to tell real emotion from the defendant, things like that, I think that it's pretty laughable that we would say that she had any clue who the real Ross Harris was.
Well, a little bit, but not much of it's going to be admissible, and then we'll let it in under limited circumstances. Testimony about overhearing anything, no. I'm not going to do that. She can, if you lay a proper foundation, testify that at the funeral, she heard the crying and the emotion. And that's the extent to which I'll let you go into it. All right, anything else?
Not at this time.
All right, she can come back to the witness stand and we can review the jury.
That's all right for the jury, please. Please be seated.
You can resume your examination.
Thank you, Leanna. I'm going to circle back to just one matter that we talked about real briefly before the break, and that was Cooper's funeral. Do you recall that sometime during the funeral that Ross was able to listen in on a cell phone, an open cell phone?
Yes, that was our way of getting him involved. The plan was just for him to listen.
Okay.
Listen to the service.
All right. And do you recall if there was someone there who just kind of all of a sudden asked Ross to actually speak?
Yes.
Don't tell us what he said. But you remember that happened?
Yes, he asked him to speak through the phone.
Okay.
And
And so what I want to ask you about is if you were able to hear that.
yes,
All right. Do you recall if Ross was in any way emotional or crying during the time he was speaking over the phone at the funeral?
yes, it was so much so that I don't even really know what he was saying. I know that there were some words that I was able to catch, but most of it was just crying.
Okay. I want to go back then to something that we had talked about right before the break, and we were talking about some of these images that you identified from April the 20th. Okay. And that is the Kiko Key Fed 30 that we were talking about.
It is.
Did you have an opportunity to see Cooper in that car seat on June the 5th?
Yes.
All right. Tell the jury about that.
I took both car seats with me to Tuscaloosa visiting my mom. So I was able to install the Key Fit 30 into her car, install the base so that she would be able to take him to see my grandmother. And so it came with us on that trip.
Okay. All right, so June the 5th would have been right about 2 weeks before Cooper's death.
Approximately.
And do you recall observing that Cooper had a growth spurt that was noticeably different than how he appears in these images that you already identified?
No, I was monitoring how he fit in that car seat. It was something that I had found in my research that when they outgrow it, there needs to be about 2 inches from the top of their head to the top of the car seat. And so I was monitoring that to make sure that he was still safe in that car seat.
Is that how he looked in the car seat on June the 5th?
It is very, I mean, he didn't have any time where he just shot up. I mean, it's right there. That's the way it looks in that picture.
All right. I now want to show you a couple of other exhibits. I'm going to go 907, 910, 914, 930. I want to show you what's been admitted into evidence in State's Exhibit 907, 910, 914, and 930. And you can pull those down and take the time and look at them. Just let me know when you've had a chance to look at them, please. Okay. Leanna, those exhibits, do they appear to be a doll placed in the Cooper's car seat?
It does. It is.
Okay. What I want to know is, let's take a look through this. It's at 9:30. Okay. What I want to know is 9:30, does that fairly and accurately represent how Cooper fit in the car seat on June the 5th when you saw him in the car seat?
No. The space in that picture, it looks like his head is taking up most of the car seat, the space in between the 2 sides of the car seat. And that's just not the way it was. He didn't sit that high up. The head looks far too big, and he looks positioned much higher in the seat than the way that I remember him in the seat.
.174, that was taken April 20th. Is that how you remember him in the seat?
It is.
I want to give the jury a little bit of perspective about sort of when the car seats were placed where, because it's easy to get that confused. We've talked about this on a couple of occasions, haven't we?
Yes.
All right. So I want to ask you, to the best of your recollection, do you recall when y'all purchased the new forward-facing car seat?
It was in March of 2014.
Okay.
And I know that because I found the receipt.
do you know when the forward-facing seat, not that one, the forward-facing seat was installed?
Yes, it was mid-May. There's a text that I found between me and Ross. I had accidentally left the house with this car seat in the car with me, and essentially had left him without a car seat. And so he put the forward-facing, he installed it in his car that day and took Cooper to daycare in it.
Okay. You, in fairness, I asked you to look back through your text messages, right? And was May the 14th ring a bell?
I believe it was May the 12th.
Okay. If I understand you correctly, what you're telling us is what had happened was you left to go to work that day, and you had this car seat.
Yes.
And the only thing that was left over was the forward-facing seat, which had not been installed in Ross's car.
Right.
You're telling us now that you made 12.
Yes,
Okay.
based on the text message.
Now, do you know if Ross installed the forward-facing seat anytime that day or the day after?
He installed it that day, that morning before he took Cooper to daycare.
All right, so y'all got it in March. There was a snafu. You left him with no other car seat, and you're telling us he installed it and took Cooper to daycare on May the 12th in the forward-facing seat.
Correct.
All right. Let's skip ahead then just a couple of days. Did y'all go to Fort Walton Beach for the weekend of May the 23rd through the 26th?
We did.
What vehicle did you take?
We took the Tucson,
And what car seat was in the Tucson?
the forward-facing car seat.
The one that Ross had installed May the 12th?
Right.
Okay. Do you have, and obviously, Leanna, we know that forward-facing seat at some time was removed from the Tucson. Okay.
Right.
We talked about that as well. Do you have any recollection of when and why the new forward-facing seat was removed from the Tucson?
Because I was going out of town, and I was going to be leaving Cooper with my mom. She was going to be taking him down to my grandmother's house. So we wanted to have a car seat that I could put in her car. And so we took out the forward-facing, we took it out of the Tucson and put it in my car. And I took one of the bases for the rear-facing, the Q-Fit 30, with me and the car seat. And then we installed the base in her car so that she could take him to my grandmother's house.
And do you know what day that was?
I believe it was around June 5th.
Okay. All right. So, if I understand correctly, you're telling us that on June 5th, you would have taken the forward-facing seat out of Ross's Tucson and installed it in your car for the trip. But you also took the key fit with you so that y'all could put it in your mom's car, so while you were there the weekend, she would have a car seat as well.
Right.
Okay. When did you get back home to Marietta?
I want to say it was maybe June the 9th, based on some texts that I saw between me and Ross. It made it appear that was around the time that I would have come home.
All right. And when you got back home, did y'all take the forward-facing, the new car seat? Did you take it out of your car and put it back into Ross's Tucson?
No, we didn't. The forward-facing was much more difficult to install, and we had gotten it in my car really well. So we left it in my car, and we just reinstalled the base to the rear-facing in Ross's car. Actually, I don't even know if we had to reinstall the base. It was probably his base that was there. No, we did, because we had taken the, oh no.
There's a number of other issues that I want to address with you this afternoon. And we'll go through some of them kind of quickly, and some of this we've talked about. did you have, or do you have a friend that has a secret room in their house?
We do.
Who is that?
Her name is Julia Apodaca.
Okay. And is this something that Ross knew about?
It is.
And do you know if Ross ever expressed any interest in that, ever talked about it, or had done any sort of research on secret rooms or panic rooms?
I know that he thought hers was pretty cool.
Okay.
They had pointed out to me one day when we were at her house that that's where her panic room is, and showed it to me. So it was something that intrigued him.
Okay. Would it be in keeping with sort of Ross's manner, way, and personality to Google stuff that he had some sort of interest in?
No, that sounds like Ross.
All right. After Ross had been in jail for a while, did you make arrangements to obtain his property?
I did. I needed his driver's license to get my tag renewed in Alabama because he was also on the title of my car.
Do you remember when it was that you got his property?
I think that it was around November 2014. The tag would have been expiring, or my Georgia tag would have been expiring in November. I would have needed to have it renewed.
And did you get that from the Cobb County Sheriff's Office?
I did. It was something that Ross requested to be sent to me.
All right. And were you able to obtain his wallet?
I was.
Leanna, I'm going to show you what has been now marked as Offense Exhibit 177 and Offense Exhibit 178. I want you to flip over and look on the back of those as well. Are those receipts that you received that you found in Ross's wallet?
They are.
I move 177, 178.
No objection.
Admitted.
And these are actually Chick-fil-A receipts from the day that we were there.
They are.
And I want you to notice, if you could, what it says, capital letters right over the date and time.
Eaten.
Both of them.
Yes.
Okay. Were you aware that your then husband was looking for a job at the Chick-fil-A company?
I was.
Do you know anything about that?
Yes, he applied for a job at Chick-fil-A and did an interview, and he felt like it went really well. He was excited about it. It was he liked the corporate company of Chick-fil-A. He liked the benefits that they offered. The company offers a lot of benefits to their employees, and he was interested in moving over to Chick-fil-A. We had a friend at the time that owned a Chick-fil-A, that operated a Chick-fil-A. So he was very interested in it and very disappointed when he didn't get the job.
Do you know anything about Chick-fil-A's daycare situation?
As far as I remember, it was a benefit that was provided for their employees. It was paid for. They had a daycare owned site just like Home Depot did, and it was also managed by Bright Horizons. Bright Horizons has managed the Home Depot, the Laborers Academy, and they also managed Chick-fil-A's daycare. And it was on site, and it was part of the employee benefit package, from my understanding.
Were you supportive of your husband's attempts to get a job at Chick-fil-A?
Yes, I wanted him to have a job where he was happy and felt fulfilled, and of course I was.
I want to talk to you about the emails that would come from Bright Horizons. You were on the email list, correct?
I was on the list. I don't think I received every email they sent, but I received the daily emails.
Okay. Good. Looks like 21, 22, 23. Yeah, they're all kind of fine. Okay. So I'm going to show you what sort of evidence. These are defendants' exhibits 21, 22, 23, 25, 27, 24. You see if you recognize those. Leanna, are those representative of the emails that would come from Bright Horizons, Little Aprons?
Yes, they are the daily. What in the world happened today?
Right. And we pulled several of those that had included some mention or image of Cooper. But what I want to ask you is, did you ever go back and look and see if there was any mention or image of Cooper on June the 18th?
I do remember looking back at that, and from what I remember, he wasn't pictured in the email.
Okay.
And there is this is the one from the 18th, and he's not in the what in the world happened today.
He's not mentioned in there at all?
No.
Okay.
They don't usually mention him by their names. They would just include a picture that they liked during the day. But it wasn't uncommon for Cooper to not be shown in a picture on these emails.
Right. Tell us about that. How often would Cooper's image appear in these daily emails?
I can't tell you how often. It seemed to me like it wasn't very often. Because obviously I'm his parent, I'm pulling it up, looking at it, want to see a picture of my son for the day, and it didn't seem like he was in them, he wasn't in the picture several times a week. I mean, it would be maybe every other week he'd be in a picture. But he also didn't go to daycare every single day of the weeks.
Tell us about Ross's hearing impediment.
How he got it.
Tell us what you know.
He was involved in a firecracker accident in, I'm trying to remember the year. It must have been, it was probably New Year's going into from 2005 to 2006. He had a bottle rocket of some kind. I'm not sure that was exactly the firework. It actually went in his ear and exploded inside his ear. There was no damage to the outside of his ear, but his inner ear was damaged severely by the explosion the firework. He had a surgery done by the ear, nose, and throat doctor. He actually went in, and from what I understand, the doctor explaining it, he actually rebuilt.
Your Honor, I'm going to object at this point. If this is something she was present for and discussed it, something like that, there's no problem. But if it's something she's learning from talking to either the defendant or the doctor, that's going to be hearsay.
I can rephrase. Okay. Was your husband deaf in his right ear?
Yes, he was.
Okay. I'm going to show you. Susan, that's 171. Okay. Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Defendant's Exhibit 171. You know what that is?
It is. It's a picture of his ear after the surgery that the doctor did to try to rebuild his bones in his ear so he could hear.
Okay. I'll move 171.
I have no problem with that, Judge.
Admit it.
And were y'all married at the time this happened?
We were we married when he had the surgery? We were not married when the accident happened. Were we married when he had the surgery? Probably not, because I think it was done within 6 months of the actual accident.
Your husband can't hear out of his right ear. Can you hear out of his left ear?
He can.
Can you explain to folks in the jury what accommodations you noticed that he would make to sort of compensate for being deaf in his right ear?
Some examples I can think of would be going to a restaurant. He would try to position himself at the table. If it was a large group of people, somewhere where he could possibly hear everybody. And if it was just the two of us, maybe somewhere where so that if the sound is bouncing off the walls in a certain way, so that he can hear me talking to him, so he doesn't have to strain to hear me. If it's a situation where he knows that you're speaking to him, he can adjust, the way that he is positioned to hear you in the best possible way. Going to the movies is another example. He would want to sit in a specific place in the theater so that he could hear as best as he could.
You recall that I asked you to look back through your texts at about May the 6th regarding some texting with your husband concerning a trip to Tybee Island with his friend Jason Abdo.
Yes, it was just thrown out there, hey, Jason's girlfriend are going to Tybee Island, you want to go? I wasn't extremely interested in going. I didn't know them extremely well. I spent a lot of time with them. And I would actually, in the text I sent back to him, I said, I would really rather go with friends that we don't see very often. You see Jason a lot. I would rather go with friends that we don't see very often, or possibly family. And so we discussed that. Jason and his girlfriend, they didn't have kids. So it came up in the text message. I think that Ross's response was, we'll need to figure out the Cooper situation. And I think my response back was something along the lines of, well, I don't know what that means. He would come with us. And he said no. Ross said no without him. And I wasn't too keen on that idea. I had been away for work for about a week in April, and I just wasn't ready to take a trip without him again.
And that was with Jason Abdo and his girlfriend.
It was.
And they don't have kids. And then I asked you to also take a look at any messaging between you and Ross on or about having to do with May the 24th and having to do with a trip to Fort Walton Beach with Ross's brother and sister-in-law.
I didn't have any texts about that trip that I could find.
No text?
No texts.
Tell me what you remember about that.
We would have been going to Fort Walton and stay in in our sister-in-law's parents' house down there, so it would have been a relatively inexpensive trip. The initial thought was that Michael and Amy wouldn't have their children with them. And so it came up, the idea of just making it an adults-only trip. And for the same reasons I wasn't too keen on it before with Jason and his girlfriend, it was the same thing. I mean, it was the same weekend we were talking about. It was the same time frame. I wasn't really ready to be away from Cooper again, having been away from him for work. And so I basically told Ross at some point, you know, if you want to go, if we go without him, why don't you talk to my mom and y'all figure out how it's going to work. And I just kind of left it.
Did you,
But then I'm sorry. Go ahead.
did you later learn, in fact, that there was a miscommunication and Michael and Amy were actually going to bring their children?
Right. That's exactly what happened. It was, come to find out, it actually ended up being even more than them. It was Amy's sister and her 3-year-old came as well. And so it ended up being, you know, a whole family trip. And it wasn't even an issue at that point. So the whole family's going too. And that's just, of course, we're taking good.
Do you, have you ever heard of a company called Griffin Psychology?
I have.
Okay. Do you know who the people that own and run Griffin Psychology are?
I do. It's Michael and Desiree Griffin. They're a married couple that we met in Tuscaloosa during another small group that we ran when we were living in Tuscaloosa. Desiree was in school at the time and Michael was practicing.
Do you know if your ex-husband had any professional relationship with Griffin Psychology or the people that work there?
He did. He prepared a website for them before we moved from Tuscaloosa to Marietta, and he was working on another website. I think he had finished it shortly before everything happened.
Brian, are there any exhibits that I have identified but not yet moved into evidence? Okay. Moving on to that. Next 171. Yes, ma'am. Don't have a 175 or 176. Chuck, you don't see these again? No. Okay. We'll try to get our number accurate. I had moved 171 over. Yeah. Okay. Is now marked as defendant's exhibits 100 through 170. And I'll show these to prosecutor, and I'll show these to you on communication as well. I'll ask you to please look through those. If you would just kind of flip through them, and you don't mind keeping them in order. Just make sure you can identify those.
No objection.
I'm going to hand you this little packaging, which includes a flash drive, and it's marked Defendant's Exhibit 175. Do you recognize that?
I do.
Are your initials on there?
They were.
And did I show you both still images and video clips that were on this flash drive?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you put your initials on there?
I did.
All right. I'm going to do 175.
No objection.
Amen.
Leanna, can you see this screen from where you are? I'm gonna put some images up here.
I can see it.
Okay. Because I want the jury to be able to see it, but I don't want you to have to stand up here for a long time. So if there's something you can't see, let me know and I'll move this. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'll put up here Defendant's Exhibit 100. And do you know what we're looking at?
An ultrasound picture of Cooper
Okay.
when I was pregnant.
All right, and you previously testified about that. Were both of you happy
Yes, very.
finding out that you were pregnant?
Very.
This is going to be Exhibit 101. What are we seeing here?
That is us at the hospital probably the day after, or the day of Cooper was born.
This is
It's the,
let's see. The fits. All right, what are we seeing here? In 102.
it's the same. It's a picture that someone took of us at the hospital shortly after we had Cooper.
That's much better, thank you. My hand probably hit it. And of course, it's you and Ross and Cooper.
Yes. That's also taken at the hospital.
And that's number 103. Is that Cooper?
It is.
Number 104?
It's Ross and Cooper at the hospital.
Okay. Was Ross a proud dad that day?
Yes, he was.
$105?
Same. This picture of Ross and Cooper at the hospital.
$106?
Also Ross and Cooper at the hospital. I think that was actually right after he was born. One of the first pictures of Ross and Cooper. That is Ross and Cooper. And he decided he was going to take him walking through a little complex. And he put him on his chest. That is Ross and Cooper at the hospital.
How many days were you in the hospital?
We were there longer than average. I want to say about 4 days total. Cooper had some elevation in some of his white counts, and so they were watching that for needing to do anything about any infection. And he had a little bit of jaundice, and so we had to do the light treatment with him. So we were there a little bit longer than average.
Okay. And
That's the day that we're leaving.
I was going to say, we see Ross wearing a different shirt there in 109. This is a couple of days after Cooper was born.
Yes.
Showing you now is 110. What are we seeing here?
That is Ross giving Cooper his first bath at home.
What do you remember about that day?
He wanted to be the one to give him his first bath.
And you let him?
Of course. That's just a picture of Ross and Cooper at home. He was very little, so he was in the first month or 2.
It's a little bit better. About a month or 2 after Cooper was born.
Based on his size. He's little.
This is 112.
That's also a pretty young photograph of Cooper. Somewhere less than 3 months old by Ross.
$113.
I think that's the same picture, just maybe a different angle.
Okay. Let's see if I can get that centered up. 114
Ross and Cooper.
seem to be the same date.
I think so. They look very similar.
115.
That's Ross and Cooper. Cooper was about 5 months old at that time, and I remember that picture because that's actually the outfit he was supposed to come home in the hospital with, but he was so little when he came home. We did put it on him, but it was so big, and I just decided that day, I'm just going to see what this looks like on him, and it fit him perfectly 5 months later.
$116.
That's
If I can frame it up a little better for you.
That's Ross, and Ross has Cooper, and he's feeding him, and then that's our friend Allison, and another one of our friends' baby in her arms. It's not her child, it's somebody else's. And we were on a visit to see my grandmother in Demopolis, Alabama.
And for those of us who don't know where Demopolis, Alabama is, can you tell these folks where that is?
About an hour south of Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
Okay.
I don't really know how to tell them I'm sorry.
That's where your mom lives.
That's where my grandmother lives.
Grandmother lives. Okay. 117.
That was after Ross gave Cooper a bath one night, and he had him wrapped up in a towel. He's not very happy, and I just snapped a picture. He didn't like baths when he was little because he didn't like to get cold, but as he got older, he started to really enjoy baths.
Right. And for the record, you said he's not very happy. Ross looks crazy happy here. You're talking about Cooper's not happy.
Right, Cooper's screaming, it appears.
All right, this is 118.
That's a picture we actually had to set up a tripod for. It's the first picture we ever took as a family.
Okay. And was Ross okay with this sort of, this part of having a child, sitting for pictures and taking pictures, and was he okay with that part of it?
Absolutely, yes.
119.
That is Cooper and the Kiko. He fit 30, but he was really, really little. It's got the insert still in it for newborns.
Okay.
And
And what, explain to them what you mean by that. It's still got the inserts in it.
it came with inserts, so when he was much smaller, it would allow him to fit properly in the car seat.
Okay. And these other images that I've shown you today of Cooper in the car on April the 20th, the insert's not there, right?
No, they were removed as he got bigger.
120.
That was his first Halloween.
And he was dressed as Batman.
Yes.
Did Ross take him out trick or treating, or did y'all like sit around the house for kids to come by?
We did. He was actually sick on Halloween, so we didn't do anything. actually put him in the costume a few weeks later just so that we could get a picture of him in it. I remember the actual Halloween night, he had either been sick or was getting sick, and he just called out early, and we just went ahead and put him to bed.
I'm showing you 121 here. You testified a little earlier about Ross being a referee for high school football. Tell us what we're seeing in 121.
Cooper was born in August, and I think Ross started officiating in September. So I think this was actually his first game. I think it was about a week to 2 weeks or so.
Ross's first game.
Yeah, Ross's first game that season.
Okay. Got another one. Is that the same day?
It is the same day.
That was Ross's outfit for his gig as a referee.
Yes.
Showing you 123.
That were some pictures that were taken of us in Tuscaloosa during his first Christmas.
And would this have been in the home of Ross's parents?
No, that appears to have been taken in Michael and Amy Davis' house. In his brother's house.
Okay, Ross's brother.
That was a picture that we took in our apartment. I think we used it for our Christmas card that year.
Right, that's 124. Okay.
Yes.
And I think this is really pretty of you, so I'm going to show it again as 125.
It's just the same. Cooper's just not biting his hand. He's looking at the camera.
126. What are we seeing here? Leanna?
That is me and Ross and Cooper. It was taken in a hotel in Miami. We drove down to the national championship game that year and took Cooper and my mom and a friend of ours with us.
Okay. You took Cooper all the way to Miami for the Alabama was playing in the national championship game.
Right. We had tickets, and it was something that Ross really wanted to do. He wanted to go, so we brought my mom along with us. And while we were at the game, she watched him at the hotel.
Okay. What appears to be maybe a close-up of Cooper. This is 127.
It is. It's that same picture. It's just zoomed in on him.
Okay. This is really cute. Can you tell us what Cooper's wearing here?
It's just a little jumpsuit. It's got the Alabama logo A on it.
Okay. This is 128.
That was taken in Piedmont Park in Atlanta
Okay.
area. And that was a picture that was probably taken by my sister-in-law, Amy.
Okay.
Just me, Ross, and Cooper.
All right. So let me just, so we can explain to these folks about Piedmont Park. Can you just tell them what Piedmont Park is?
It's just a really large park in the Atlanta area. They have dog parks you can take your dog to. They have playgrounds for the children. They have all kind of events there. They have a botanical garden area, I think, too. And you can go and just walk around and kind of spend the day there. They have
Different events.
They have lots of different events. I think we went to a ice cream festival once before.
Okay.
There.
All right. And the reason why I'm pausing here, you had mentioned earlier before the break that one of the things that Ross enjoyed doing with Cooper was y'all would go hiking.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this is a park. Is this another type of activity that Ross enjoyed including Cooper in?
Well, I mean, we included him in most things. I mean, if we went somewhere, Cooper went with us.
Okay.
And so his brother and sister-in-law were there, and we just went out to the park.
This This is 129. What are we seeing here?
That is a picture of Ross and Cooper, and it's his first Easter, based on the bag. The bag's got some eggs on it, and that was a gift that my mom had got him that year, and so Ross is helping him unwrap it.
Okay. Do you know if that was at your mom's house or at y'all's house?
That's at our house.
130.
It's the same. It's actually was taken in Cooper's room.
131.
That's just a picture of Ross and Cooper. It was an outfit that my mom had gotten, so we wanted to put it on him, and I wanted to text it to my mom and show her what it looked like.
130.
That is,
32.
that's the trip to Miami as well. We went out to the beach before we left and just kind of took him out there to kind of see what he thought about the ocean and the sand. He wasn't very impressed.
Okay. 133.
That is a picture that my friend Angie took of the three of us at the varsity in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. And do you mind telling everybody what the varsity is?
The varsity is just it's kind of a tourist attraction in the Atlanta area. They have hot dogs and hamburgers. A lot of people from out of town will go there just to say they've gone there. It's very kind of tourist right?
Okay. This is 134.
That's at a Braves game.
Okay. 135.
That would be Ross pushing Cooper in the swing in the park.
Okay. When y'all would go to the park for these kind of activities, that Ross and Cooper would be able to do together.
Yes, he wanted to be the one to push him in the swing, slide down the slide with him. It was very common.
No, this may be the same. Do you know what this is?
That is that's a Braves game. It's a different Braves game.
Okay.
Cooper's a little bit older there, I think.
137.
That's a picture that we took at his first birthday party.
Okay. How do you know this was a birthday party?
I put him in that little bow-tie onesie. And that's the only time he wore it was on his birthday.
All right. 138.
That's the same party. Looks like Ross is holding Cooper and Cooper's holding a ball.
139.
That's his first birthday cake.
Okay. And you've already told us Cooper liked cars and so.
Mhm.
Okay. 140.
That was, would have been Halloween 2013. And it just looks like Ross is getting ready to carve a pumpkin.
Yeah. So
Cooper's
this
watching.
orange thing right here that's a pumpkin.
It is.
All right. And this is like some template that for cutting.
It is.
Okay. All right, and we've got some more. It looks like it's from that same day. 141.
He's, I can remember taking those pictures of, he's trying to get Cooper to kind of check out the pumpkin and kind of see what's inside of it, but he's a little, he don't really know what to think about it.
Ross didn't know what to think about it.
So, Cooper didn't know what to think
Cooper
about
didn't know
it.
what to think about it. All right, I'm just show you a couple more from that same. That's 142. That same thing we're seeing.
It is. Ross is just trying to get him to kind of stick his hand down in there and kind of feel the pumpkin.
He's trying to force his hand down into the pumpkin to feel it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and then 143.
That was after he felt it.
Yeah. And then 140. 144.
And he's got his hand in the pumpkin.
He's going in.
Yeah.
Okay. $145.
That's a picture of Ross and Cooper, probably on an Alabama game day, just based on what they're wearing. And I think it was taken at his parents' house in Tuscaloosa.
I want you to call your attention specifically to what Cooper's wearing there and tell us if there's any significance in what he's wearing.
Ross is a huge Alabama fan. He graduated from the University of Alabama, and he wanted Cooper to go there too. He made comments about that a lot.
$146.
It's a picture of Ross and then just a little bit of Cooper's head. And that looks like it's the rest of the picture. I think it was like a little selfie he took of the two of them and texted it to me.
148.
You can see our dog behind Ross. It looks like we're getting ready to take the dog out, and it must have been pretty cold because they've got Cooper pretty bundled up.
I want to show you a couple of pictures real quick of Cooper's room. We'll move through these sort of quickly, but 149.
That is Cooper's room. You can see his bed on the right of the picture. It was a crib that turned into a toddler day bed, and then the bed on the left is just us.
150.
And that's just from the other angle. You can see his bed better and all his toys.
You testified about crawling into Cooper's bed when you got home from the police station. Is that the bed?
It is.
That's a lot of decoration in that room. Did you do all that by yourself?
No. Ross painted the room while I was at work. He painted, I picked out the color, and I came home from work. He hadn't started his job at Home Depot yet. So he moved over about a month before he actually started his job. And I was pregnant. I came home from work, and he had painted the room.
151, same thing.
It is. It's just a closer.
The day bed.
Yes.
152.
That's just a picture of a little artwork type thing that was made at daycare when he was in the infant room. He didn't start daycare. He didn't start until October. And so this was one of the first little things we ever got from daycare that Cooper made. I mean, obviously he didn't make it himself, but his picture, he's probably about 14, 15 weeks old.
What is the jury seeing here on the left-hand side?
It's a very small Home Depot apron that Ross brought home from work. And he brought it home because it was tiny and probably fit on their baby. So I just hung it up because I thought it was cute.
And then 153.
That's just a shot of the changing table on his dresser.
It doesn't give some perspective as to where the
Right.
apron was, and did you just okay?
That door to the left is the closet in that bedroom.
And lastly, before we move on, 154.
It's just the picture of the bed that was in Cooper's room.
This is 155. What are we seeing here?
That's just Ross sitting down on Cooper's bed, and it looks like they're flipping through a book together. That's Ross laying in the bed in Cooper's room, and then Cooper's on top of him asleep. And that particular time, I think he was having trouble going down for a nap. And so Ross said, well, I'm going to see if I can get him to take a nap. I'm going to go in here with him and lay down with him. And that's how I found them. They were both asleep.
157.
That was taken in downtown Marietta in the square, and it was just a day that I think we had his family in visiting, and we were just down there hanging out, window shopping, just looking around.
Okay.
And he just pulled his sunglasses off and put them on Cooper and went to the picture.
And so the jury will understand. The downtown Marietta area, we have a little square down there,
Yes.
and there are shops and restaurants and things like that. And that's an area that y'all will go to hang out or walk around or shop or eat or whatnot.
It was, our church was actually on the square, so we spent some time over there. And it had cool little shops you could go into and go out.
158.
That is, looks like it was taken in our living room, kind of dining table area, and it's Ross and Cooper. I can't tell what's behind his arm. I can't tell what shadow is behind Cooper. It looks weird from his ankle. I don't know. It looks like that was probably taken the same day because he's wearing the same pajamas. Um,
160.
that is just a picture of Cooper falling asleep in the little umbrella stroller we had him out in that day.
161.
I'm pretty sure that picture was taken on the way to the beach for the Memorial Day weekend trip. He's in the forward-facing car seat, and he was extremely tired. He's about to fall asleep in that picture. He's very, very close to falling asleep. Very dazed.
Just to make sure that nobody on the jury is confused, you said forward-facing car seat. This isn't the key fit.
Right. It's a different
That's the
car seat.
new car seat.
That's the new car seat.
162.
That is Cooper in his second Halloween.
Dressed as like a little monkey or something.
Yes.
This is Defendant's Exhibit 20. You see Cooper in that same monkey outfit.
Yes. I really can't tell where that's taken. It looks like it was possibly at Home Depot.
But it's the same costume we're
It
talking
is.
about. 163.
That was a picture of us before we went hiking at Kennesaw Mountain. I've got Cooper on my chest in a carrier.
And this, the activities you were talking
Yes.
about doing hiking Kennesaw.
Mm-hmm.
164.
That's just a picture of Ross and Cooper asleep.
And 65.
That's a picture of Ross and Cooper at the pool.
Right. Do you know what pool that is?
That was the pool in our condo.
Okay. 166.
Ross looks like he's asleep, and I don't know if that was taken at night or in the morning, but Cooper's just kind of snuggled up in the back of his neck.
Okay. Can you tell from the surroundings, is that your bed at home?
It is.
Okay. this is 167.
That was taken while we were down in Fort Walton Beach Memorial Day weekend, 2014. I think that was also taken that weekend. That's Ross's arm. He's kind of just holding on. Ross. He was very tired.
169.
That was when we went to the circus in Jackson, Mississippi. And that's a picture that my friend Angie took of the three of us.
Okay. Well, is that where she lives, Jackson, Mississippi?
She lives in that area. I think she actually lives in Brandon.
$170.
That's just a picture that Ross texted me one morning. I think I might have been out of town for work or something.
Okay. Judge, if I could have just a moment, I need to set up Armando.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your notepads.